Hello. Today I'm going to talk about prolonged jaundice in an apparently normal baby. The definitions of the topic, a heading will come in the next slide. I introduce myself. I am Dr. Karthikeyan Gangebuthu, DM Neonatology from India and FRCPCH from London. To see the, again, currently in Dubai. Good. And let's proceed with the topic. Now, here is the baby on phototherapy. You must be aware, I have a few comments on this. The distance of separation, the next line. Yeah. See, vertical distance from here to here. Previously, it was recommended that to 50 centimeters is okay, but now it's 30 centimeters or less because the current LED lights are the current specially designed the lights for phototherapy. They don't generate that much heat. And in fact, for image heat might be protected. It may be useful also these days. So this separation distance has come down now up to as low as 20 centimeters is perfectly acceptable, right? Right. So there's a standard therapy for jaundice. For you, the students, I make you understand that phototherapy is useful for unconjugated jaundice. Very important. Underline this. And this. A phototherapy is useful for unconjugated jaundice. Okay. So now pass on to what is the definition of prolonged jaundice. Prolonged jaundice is jaundice persisting at 14 days of life. It's a minor difference between persistent and prolonged. Okay, if it's persistent, the jaundice is started. By the English of it, a jaundice is started as an early jaundice, as a less than a week jaundice. It gets stuck up and doesn't go off. That is persistent jaundice, but there's only one thin dividing line. Prolonged means that just the duration. It's more than 14 days, 2 weeks. In preterm means in those who are in intensive care, the definition has been extended to include or is a bit relaxed to define that preterms or high risk for jaundice. So we define that it can be up to 21 days, right? 2.2% of all the live births in a major tertiary NICU in London, King's College London, which has got the largest experience with prolonged jaundice, suffer from prolonged jaundice by the definition of it. So here the difference between prolonged jaundice and jaundice in the first day is that for prolonged jaundice, what is needed is an etiological evaluation. From the therapeutic point of view, uh, we have to first identify the etiology. The etiology is not as simple as just unconjugated jaundice needing phototherapy. A proper evaluation is needed, especially to rule out extrahepatic biliary atresia, which is surgical emergency. So that's the key fact in the evaluation of or the approach to a baby with prolonged jaundice. I repeat, it's jaundice persistent or seen at more than 14 days of life in 10 babies and might be 21 days in preterm babies. Right? Why is it apparently normal baby? These babies are seen in outpatient. They are not in NICU. They are not sick enough to be receiving treatment in NICU. By this, I clearly rule out a baby who is septic or who is having a dangerous disease and involuntary metabolism like tyrosinemia. Correct? Two things I'm saying, sepsis and tyrosinemia are also causes for prolonged jaundice. An apparently normal baby presenting in the outpatient clinic to the neonatologist or the pediatrician neonatal training who is following this baby in the outpatient department sees a baby at 14 days who is jaundice. Here is the situation we are going to explain further. Right, so what sort of etiology? I said again, repeat, what we need is an etiological evaluation. This is no different exactly. It's the difference is that jaundice within the first week, especially within the first 48 hours, needs an immediate estimation of biliary check, and then starting off the life-saving treatment, life-saving or brain-saving, disability preventing therapy, which is intensive phototherapy. Okay, but here the concern is not to bring down the level of jaundice. It is for etiological evaluation of these babies who are jaundiced at 14 days. So why? Because we have to find out first conjugated or unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. What is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia? Total bilirubin includes conjugated and unconjugated bilirubin, and if the conjugated fraction is more than 20% of the total bilirubin, it is called conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. If it is less than 20% of the total bilirubin, it is called unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Conjugated hyperbilirubinemia is a rare disorder. And it told out of all the prolonged cases, if you remember, the percentage is 2.2% of all the deliveries. Babies who are delivered have prolonged jaundice, and out of these, only 0.14 per thousand labors or 0.65% of the neonates with prolonged jaundice. So from 2.2, which is the total prevalence of prolonged jaundice, only 0.65 is conjugated prolonged jaundice. Why I insist that conjugated hyperbilirubinemia is associated with extrahepatic biliary atresia, surgical emergency. So in the King's College study, 30% of all babies with prolonged jaundice have conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, conjugated prolonged hyperbilirubinemia. Correct? Let's pass on the next slide. Here we are. The causes of unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, I said 70% of the largest series of babies with prolonged jaundice. The prolonged jaundice is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, defined also means the unconjugated fraction is more. More means it should be 80% or above. Correct? That is reverse of the definition of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, I said the conjugated bilirubin is 20% or above, that becomes conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So for unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, it is 80% or above. The total fraction should be unconjugated hyperbilirubin. Unconjugated hyperbilirubin, for you to remember the physiology, it has the potential to cross the blood-brain barrier and cause neurologic damage. That's what is our worry in early onset jaundice, especially jaundice less than 24 hours when the blood-brain is very immature. You end up with sequelae like kernicterus or its neurological impairments, bind, bilirubin-induced neurological dysfunction. This is current terminology, bind, bilirubin-induced neurological dysfunction. But concern here is that after 14 days, still 70% of the cases of prolonged jaundice are still unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, but these are apparently well babies you see in the outpatient department. Clear this is review? Now go ahead. Now causes of unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia is the breast milk jaundice. Is breast milk jaundice number 1, number 2, number 3. Commonest is breast milk jaundice. The hemolysis can be continuing. GCSPD especially can present later. ABO can be delayed or it can be persistent as well. Polycythemia, extravasated blood, increased intrahepatic circulation. This is important. Pylori stenosis, bowel obstruction. This can cause unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. And a male baby who is puny, who is wasted and who throws out his milk so violently at your face, maybe. Those have pylori stenosis and they can present jaundice. I have seen quite a few babies whose upper GI obstruction they present with jaundice. Endocrine or metabolic causes hypothyroid hypotiroidism are also causes sepsis. Urosepsis can also cause unconjugated. But here, endocrine metabolic also cause of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Urosepsis also can cause mixed or predominantly conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. The next slide. Right, now come to the causes of unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Underline. It's extrahepatic biliary atresia. Extrahepatic biliary tract atresia, which includes biliary atresia and cholelocholal system. And there are some variants of it, bile duct hyperplasia syndromes, Alagillis syndromes, and then neonatal hepatitis syndrome. So it's basically a neonatal hepatitis versus extrahepatic biliary atresia. Okay. In subsequent slides, we find that now it is both severe continuum. Neonatal hepatitis and extrahepatic biliary atresia, both before they thought it is a distinct disorders, different etiopathogenesis, but now they have proved to be a sort of continuum, neonatal hepatitis to extrahepatic biliary atresia, because neonatal hepatitis is supposed to be inflammatory process that initiates, and that when the end of the inflammatory process is fibrosis, and this is extrahepatic biliary. This is conceptually now it's believed to be a continuum. All right, but basically there is a developmental quotient. It's not developmental quotient. It's developmental variant that is still there in extrahepatic biliary atresia, immaturity development per se, or a malformed development of the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. Correct? Right. We go to the next thing. I previously mentioned tyrosinemia type 1, this alpha-1 deficiency, they all can cause, and torch infection also causes conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, which can present either early or as a prolonged jaundice. Next. Now, extrahepatic biliary atresia is 1 in 15,000 live births. You should suspect in all units with jaundice and those with pale or clay colored stools. I'll say there's an initiative in London by the King's College that said all mothers should look at the baby's stools every day until the first month of life. Any baby who has got a pale stool, a china clay stool, or a porcelain type stool, anytime is always abnormal. A pale color is very, very abnormal. It's a danger sign. It's not even an abnormal. It's a danger sign, imminent danger. Should be reported to a physician or immediately, and baby should be taken to the hospital as soon as possible. A pale stool, clay color stool. It's china clay. It's not clay. It's china, pure pale clay. Right. So it's conjugated jaundice with elevation of alkaline phosphatase. Ultrasonogram, HIDA scan, and operative cholangiogram, they are used to define these gradings, types of extrahepatic biliary atresia, and plan for surgery as well. Whatever about the extrahepatic biliary atresia is that the time is crucial. Time is the essence of life. In here, time is very crucial in ensuring a baby doesn't suffer from irreversible hepatic damage that may lead to death of the baby without liver transplantation. Time is essence, less than 2 months, as less than 10 weeks. You should operate any baby with extrahepatic biliary atresia to ensure that this baby lives on its own liver. Right? Next slide. Here this ultrasound, people have studied ultrasound before. They used to go for HIDA scan and interpret the cholangiogram as well. Ultrasound is supposed to be a very good sensitive sign in locating this extrahepatic biliary atresia. Triangular cord sign has been recently described. It's supposed to have a sensitivity specificity more than 80%, right? But always it's the pale stool, pale or clay clinical stool. That's important. Never miss that. And never ignore that complaint from a parent who complains of I saw a pale stool despite you having seen a normal stool in the OP. Never ignore that. You are medically legally liable. This is the HIDA scan. You see the liver outline here. You can see the liver outline beautifully. This is the liver outline, but there is no tracer excretion below that. Normally, if I'm here, this is short extracurricular, and then the hepatic duct, cystic duct, both combine together and then come down, make to the pancreatic duct, and then go to the ampoule of wet hair, which opens into the second part of duodenum anatomy. Correct. So it's no excretion of dye in the intestine 24 hours. So this is the HIDA scan, which is consistent with extrahepatic biliary atresia. Right. So this is operative cholangiogram. You can see nice picture. See, this is cystic duct, hepatic duct, coming down common hepatic duct. It joins the pancreatic duct, ampoule of Vater, second part of duodenum. And these are some types of variants of the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. If you know the anatomy, you can have a look. Cold-Dockels type, and the type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, depending upon where the atrophy is there. But end point is that bile doesn't reach the duodenum. Means excretion is gone. Surgical treatment or Kasai's procedure. This I told you, 2 months of age. So Kasai's a Japanese doctor who invented the procedure. He gave these babies. Kasai gave these babies 80% jaundice free and liver transplant free. But I told you, the liver transplant is available, costly. Getting a match donor, risk of surgery, and why at all a baby should depend on others' liver, then it can as well happily live with his own liver, right? So 80% jaundice free and 80% transplant, liver transplant free survival up to adolescence. But despite this, there's a trend towards late diagnosis. Even the USA, the diagnosed babies established biliary atresia, the average age of diagnosis, median age of diagnosis, 48.5 days in 1990, but it decreased or increased? It increased to 94 days in 2000. Okay, this was exactly the scenario in 1990s. UK went in for a yellow campaign. Yellow campaign means stools should be yellow. Look at the color of the stools. A color that's not yellow is not normal. A white color or pale clay color is dangerous. It's an imminent danger, emergency. You should take your baby to the hospital, healthcare system. Right, so 94 days, and after again sensitization, the diagnosis of extrahepatic biliary atresia was 69 days. You missed the golden period, which is 2 months. That's in 2004. Mean age diagnosis in India, native country, is 3.5 months. This is the statistics of 2012. Next. So what about the breast milk jaundice, which is the commonest cause of unconjugated prolonged hypovolemia? 15 to 40% of exclusively breastfed babies have this breast milk jaundice, and this is the commonest reason. And this is the commonest reason for, or among all cases of prolonged jaundice put together, this is the commonest scenario: breast milk jaundice. Now, I said apparently normal baby, correct? These babies are apparently thriving well. They are very big babies who are on exclusive breast milk, and yes, they have jaundice. But that's the only concern. Babies are otherwise well, extremely well. So, what are the causes, putative causes of this? A pregnant 3-alpha 20-beta-diol, which is in the breast milk, increased free fatty acids, somehow the bilirubin, which is increased intrahepatic circulation as well. Instead of getting bilirubin going into the stechobilirubin and into the feces, it just gets circulated again and again. Breastfed babies have intrahepatic circulation is increased manyfold, and there is an obvious genetic element. This is recent concept that there is a genetic element underlying many of these cases breast milk jaundice, which is what's enzyme which is necessary for conjugating the bilirubin? Uridine diphosphoglucuronide, diglucuronidase. That polymorphism of the enzyme will be an underlying factor in many of these cases of prolonged jaundice due to breast milk jaundice, or so-called breast milk jaundice. Might be in another 5 years, the whole definition might be different. You may come with a genetic name. It's possible. Polymorphism of UDPG, transferase enzyme, UDPGT. Right? Next. So breast milk jaundice, as I said, it's happening. Normal baby, it's just a jaundice which is of concern. Yellow baby is a pure yellow baby with pure yellow stools. It's not a clay stool, so it's okay. It's yellow. But and at this age, 14 days, the blood-brain barrier is mature, so no need to rush in to put on lights. So convince the corporate bosses that you should not start phototherapy in these babies. And phototherapy is indicated if it is around 20 to 25 range. There might be an occasional instance where you may need to consider an exchange transfusion if the BD is more than 25 mmg. Please use this nomogram charts, AHH charts for this, which is the max cutoff at the stop. All the charts stop at 14 days. Okay, so that's the maximum cutoff you can see. But anything more than 25, you need to consider temporary cessation of breastfeeding. What interesting factor is that once you stop breastfeeding for 48 to 72 hours and then reinstate, this doesn't come back to the extent as it was before. Understand this point? So when you consider a serious procedure like exchange transfusion for a simple benign thing as benign as the breast milk jaundice, just temporarily stop, pause. You would say it's not a stop; it's a pause. Pausing for 48 to 72 hours is a very good treatment. This was just a clinical observation which has been built up into practice over generations, over decades, I would say. Next. So hypothyroidism and prolonged jaundice. 6 out of 110 with prolonged jaundice in a Turkish study. Only quite a few studies. Apart from the King's College studies, there is a Turkish study which studied babies with prolonged jaundice, 110 babies, out of which 5.5% were found to be due to hypothyroidism. So thyroxine treatment brings a prompt relief in these cases. By this time, you would have the evaluation by the newborn screening test as well. So look at the TRH, TSH, and the TSH. Thyroxine treatment will give a prompt relief, but once the jaundice is relieved, please don't stop the thyroxine. Thyroxine treatment should continue according to the protocol for congenital hypothyroidism. Please don't stop thyroxine until you and follow the recommendations for treatment of congenital hypothyroidism. Full slide. Next. So now come to urinary tract infection and prolonged jaundice. 6% of neonates with prolonged jaundice in Iranian study had proven UTI. In the initial stages, this is unconjugated, but later this jaundice can also become conjugated. So prompt treatment of UTI with antibiotics gives you the instant relief from this jaundice. That's proof of pudding concept. Treat the cause, the illness should disappear. So this is UTI. This I am talking about hypothyroidism UTI. The excellent preventable causes. Medicine don't miss any preventable cause of any disease. Very important. And nowadays it's medical legal also that you don't miss a treatable cause. Thyroidism, hypothyroidism, and urinary tract infection. These are simple treat. They are eminently treatable. And the failure to recognize them is dangerous. You lose your IQ, hypothyroidism, and if you don't treat an UTI, you will end up with reflux and other disorders. So both are morbidities which a physician is bound to detect early, treat, and avoid. Next slide. So approach to the prolonged jaundice. So basically, now we got clear. A prolonged jaundice, we are doing etiological evaluation per se to find the most dreadful etiology, which is extrahepatic biliary atresia, and then refer to surgeons for precise procedures, which has got an 80% success rate in getting rid of the jaundice and ensuring an intact liver transplant free survival. So right, okay, now an approach to prolonged jaundice. You see a baby 14 days with jaundice. Visible jaundice means we look at jaundice by the skin color of the baby, and the baby is old. Baby will not be having photophobia, and you can see the conjunctiva as well. Right. So anything more than 5 mg total bilirubin is visible in the screen. So that's a cutoff for clinical jaundice. The clinical visible jaundice is more than 5 milligram per dl. Right. So delivery details is loss, birth weight, gestation, jaundice on current weight is very important. The baby is malnourished. I said, you remember, babies with upper GIT obstruction, especially a boy with congenital pyelostenosis, hyperpyelostenosis, will be malnourished, and hence a puny baby, a marasmic baby with throws out milk at you and jaundiced. rule out hypertrophic congenital parastenosis. A stool color, I'm telling that feeding history and stool color. A well baby should be feeding well, and as in apparent normal we're discussing. So stool color should be yellow. Any clay or pale color points to conjugate hyperbilirubinemia, right? That's all. So urine color is important. Ecolic urine, colorless urine, or if a pigmented urine means it's already excretion is happening, bit good. Colic jaundice. Blood group incompatibilities and all these common cause, but I said three causes remain: extrahepatic biliary atresia, and urinary infection, and hypothyroidism. One more thing, galactosemia, which also will be visible in newborn screening test. Important rule picks up many causes, especially hypothyroidism and galactosemia. Both are cystic fibrosis things are there. They also cause jaundice. Okay, right. And you just do a careful clinical examination. What you will see in careful clinical examination is to current weight, astronomically, baby's activity, grade of dermal icterus, stigmata of torch infections, and etc. Looking into the eyes is also important. The next slide. Not to miss out cases of biliary atresia, urinary infection, and hypothyroidism, and avoid many blood tests in units with breast milk jaundice by far the commonest cause. Okay, so this is if you want to evaluate a protocol for your junior doctors to understand what is prolonged jaundice and what you're supposed to do, and not to miss out cases, serious cases like established biliary atresia. We need to define protocol is needed. So these are things you should not miss. I already told you. You should not miss out biliary atresia, urinary tract infection, and hypothyroidism. And obviously you should not keep on pricking. Etiology evolution means a lot of blood tests. A baby have only 80 ml per kilo of blood. A baby who is coming at 14 days is around 4 kilos. 4 into 80. How much? 4 into 80. 4 into 80, how much? 320 ml. Out of 320 ml, you should not take out 10%, 20% of blood. So avoid many blood tests. Okay. By far, I said by this time you should have the newborn screening test, which will be ruling out this galactosemia and hypothyroidism more confidently you'll be able to rely. So you should now coming to this protocol development. Okay, next slide. And then it is again it's a clinical thing. Yellow campaign in UK was to identify children, babies with pale stools and refer them as a medical emergency. This is for extrahepatic biliary atresia, which is 80% liver transplant free survival provided Kasai surgery is done within 10 weeks of the birth of the baby, as the 2 months cutoff. Right, so all babies with pale or clay color stools will need, any mother with pale or clay color stool any point in time, you should do a complete liver function test, the split bilirubin, and have an evaluation. Don't miss this test. You do the test and don't see the results, and baby comes out at 2 months, you are responsible again medically. Well, exclusive breastfed infants, send them home. You check split. This is most probably the baby who is thriving well and is otherwise well, and you see the newborn screening test and they're normal, and baby does babies well. So home and check split bilirubin at 3 weeks along with urinary hypothyroid test. If still jaundice, means even if the newborn screening test is negative, still you need to do a blood test to rule out thyroid. This newborn screening is not 100% reliable. Still, screening test is a screening test. So, even if we clinically suspect some diagnosis which are supposed to be picked up with the screening test, you are supposed to do a confirmatory or diagnostic test further in the evaluation. This is also medical legal. Just because you have a screening test which rules out something, when you are confronted with a clinical scenario where that particular diagnosis is still possible, please repeat the test. So, exclusively breastfed but not thriving and all formula fed infants split bilirubin and urinary thyroid test and act accordingly. So here I am splitting the babies presenting on 14 days with apparent level into 3 scenarios: those with pale stools, and then well exclusively breastfed, and those who are exclusively breastfed but not thriving, and all formula fed infants. Correct. Now coming to the protocol. And then all infants with prolonged jaundice need follow-up visits until jaundice resolves or etiology is established. This is because there are hereditary hyperbilirubinemia, including conjugated hereditary hyperbilirubinemia, which is Dubin-Johnson-Rotan syndrome, and also Gilbert syndrome. We'll come back to them. This is a protocol which I developed before, still applicable very well. Have a look at this. Jaundice at 14 days, 3 boxes come. Stool color is the first prior box, diagnostic box. And then we go into breast or formula milk. Next diagnostic question is breast or formula milk. So the stool is pale, this side we go. Stool is pale is one danger sign. This go. His check stool, urgent split bilirubin plus LFT. Here, if we come the breast or formula milk, breastfed baby, well thriving baby. So obviously breast milk jaundice cannot come in formula fed baby, correct? That's simple logic. So the baby is mixed breast or formula or exclusively formula fed or breastfed but unwell or failing to thrive. Understand these boxes? Pale color, all pale color, irrespective of the feeding babies receive, they go into this urgent blood test pathway, right? Urgent emergent blood test pathway, LFT and split bilirubin. And further evaluation. They are not sending home or even in delaying things. Those who are yellow stools, they come to a lesser, stricter pathway, which is then we decide which milk baby is getting. If it is breast milk, then the commonest scenario is possible still, which is 80 to 80% of prolonged jaundice. That is this breast milk jaundice. So that happens only the breast is entirely breastfed and is thriving at birth. And the well baby who is thriving at birth. Those cases you can just you can avoid a blood test provided you give the newborn screening test. It's not an excuse that you. It doesn't serve an excuse that baby is breastfed, baby is thriving well. Didn't have the time. I didn't bother to call for the newborn screen test. I should have a review of the newborn screen test because still hypothyroidism and galactosemia has to be ruled out. Galactosemia cannot be ruled out clinically. It's still possible. Okay, that is ruled out. And then send the baby review at a week later. If the baby is no jaundice, then you can treat. If there is then at that time also is rule out UTI and then reassure and follow up. If the baby is still jaundice, it goes for the full complete workup. Thyroid, urine function test for blood and split bilirubin. So here's all formula fed babies who are having prolonged jaundice will normally require all this investigation because the formula fed babies even within the first week of life has bilirubin trends which are at least 2 milligram lower than exclusively breastfed babies. Formula fed babies or jaundice risk is lower. This is proven. It's not against breast milk because people have found the mild hypobilirubinemia unconjugated is useful as an antioxidant effect. But its reality is that formula fed babies don't suffer from a dangerous level of bilirubin. In fact, chronic personal things are also less comparatively prevalent in formula fed babies. It's clear, right? So then this full workup always, if you find a baby congenital hypovolemia, then you need to include all these tests you can go through. Torch screen, abdominal ultrasound. I said abdominal ultrasound, you had the triangular cord sign, which is a recent thing which helps to negate both invasive test or radioactive agents usage. Amino acids, then many things are there. So neonatal hepatitis syndrome, extrahepatic biliary atresia, now they are considered as a continuum. They are not considered as a separate entities. It's a continuing process from neonatal hepatitis to fibrosis and product of inflammation that leads to extrahepatic biliary atresia. So the points to remember again to recapitulate what we were taught. The breast milk jaundice is the commonest cause of prolonged jaundice. It is unconjugated hypovolemia. Underline this. A breast milk jaundice is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. It is never a conjugated hyperbilirubinemia is never a breast milk jaundice. Consider biliary atresia in all jaundice neonates with pale or clay stools and treat biliary atresia by 2 months of age and rule out hypothyroidism and UTI. In babies with prolonged jaundice, we'll add up that you should look at the NNST to rule out galactosemia. A tyrosinemia is a dangerous disorder that manifests as conjugated hyperbilirubinemia and also alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. And there are congenital disorders like Gilbert's disease, Dubin-Johnson, Crigler-Najjar, type 1, type 2. All are cause of prolonged jaundice. I'll share the secret. Follow these babies weekly until the bilirubin drops to less than 2 mg. It's very important. At 2 months or 3 months, if you are left with the bilirubin which is more than 2 milligram, total bilirubin I mean, at this point, these are babies who are falling into the spectrum of mild Gilbert's disease or Krigler-Najjar, the less serious variant of Krigler-Najjar type, if it is unconjugated. A conjugated bilirubin at this age, 3 months, more than 2 mg, will means it's Dubin-Johnson-Rotar syndrome. So this is the need for follow-up. Some of them like Gilbert syndrome or Krigler-Najjar, the variant which is responsible to phenobarbital. The babies can be on intermittent phenobarbital or continuous phenobarbital depending upon the whole assessment of the family. These are the babies who were with proven mutations of UDPGT, right? Urine diphosphoglucuronidase transferase. So, but by and large, you will not miss this thing less establish biliary atresia, provided you look at the stool color, clay color or pale color stool. Don't miss that. And never negate that symptom from a mother, even though you see or your team sees a normal stool. Any complaint of pale or clay stool should be investigated thoroughly, and that's the main issue. And then breast milk jaundice is a common thing. You don't treat unless the levels reach to a situation where we may be pausing the breast milk for 2 days at the most. Treat an UTI, treat a hypothyroid state that is associated with a prolonged jaundice. And yes, back to basics. Check out the weight of the baby, look at the stools, assessment of the baby, clinical assessment, hepatosmegaly, and all this, and have a protocol in place so that you don't miss this complaint or the symptom described by the mother of a pale stool. It's yellow, which is healthy. The stool color yellow. A baby yellow with a stool yellow color is normally a healthy baby. White is not normal, it's a danger sign in the stool. If you have a white stool or pale or clay color stool, it is an imminent emergency, gastrohepatic emergency. With that, we come to the end of this presentation. I thank you all. Have a good day. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. It was about prolonged jaundice. By definition, it is 14 days in a term baby and 21 days in a preterm baby, where we need to perform etiological evaluation by history, clinical examination, and laboratory evaluation alike. And the phototherapy that's now for neonatal jaundice in babies less than a week of life or even less than 10 days is not the treatment which is needed for prolonged jaundice. It is the evaluation, and based upon the evaluation, we proceed. With those words, I end this presentation again once again. All, thank you. Bye.